Okay, so hello to everybody who actually saw this alert come in and has joined us online live right now. We're broadcasting on YouTube. I wanted to kind of catch us up on what's going on at Spirit Chapel. There's been some questions, and I want to make sure that you hear it from me. I want to tell you what we're doing, and more importantly, I want to tell you why we're doing it and kind of talk about where we'll be heading forward. So that's what this talk is all about. So the first question I think that might need to be answered is, are we canceling our services, and if so, why? Yes, we are. All events at Spirit Chapel right now, all group events of any kind have been canceled. Everything from the voice lessons to the grief share to Bible study and the services themselves, they're all canceled right now. And the next question gets to why. I know a lot of people kind of express some disappointment. I know that we kind of seem like a little bit of a renegade church sometimes, and we don't follow the rules as normal. But this time we are, and it really has nothing to do with any kind of political pressure, just so you know. I mean, I try to keep my politics out of the pulpit, but you all can pretty much guess exactly how many times Governor Wolf and I have probably agreed with each other over the few years that we've been here. But I'm telling you what, I agree with him now, and I agree with Donald Trump as well. This is the right thing to do, and I want to talk about why. So let me give you a moment to explain. There's a phrase you may have heard, and it's a really important one to understand. It's called flatten the curve, and that's what we're going to try to explain what we mean by that and why we're participating in an effort that I hope is nationwide to flatten the curve, because it really does make a difference. Now, I have spent a lot of time studying this. I'm no doctor. Those of you know me, I'm barely a preacher. But I'm no doctor. I'm no medical scientist. But I've gone past the headlines. I've gone past what you see on television. I've done a lot of reading and studying on this. And this is what I have seen, the picture as it kind of evolved. First and foremost, we were not caught completely unawares from this. The virus that started in Wuhan, China. Now, the Chinese government's not exactly an open book when it comes to telling us things, so we didn't know exactly how bad it was. When I say we, I'm collectively saying the rest of the world. But we had an idea that it was going to be a little bit bad. But one advantage that we have in this country is that we saw it hit the other places first, closer to the China area. So we saw what happened with Iran and France and Italy, South Korea, some of the other places. So it allows us to kind of understand what's going on. And then you may have heard a lot of things, and a lot of people are dismissing and saying, look, this is just the flu. It's no big deal. It's just the flu. We've had the flu before. Why are we shutting down over a flu? And so we can just go ahead and continue on as planned. And if you get it, you get it. You get better. I know why people say it's the flu. It's like the flu. It's really not. It has some symptoms of the flu, but to say this is like a flu is like saying my dog Zion's an awful lot like a wolf. Yeah, there's some similarities there. They may even come from the same basic family, but a real wolf is a lot meaner and bigger than my Zion pup is. And let me tell you something. This thing is a lot meaner and bigger than what we're expecting if you just think it's just a flu. So let me tell you that it is probably the most infectious disease that we've seen at least since the 1800s. That makes it really, really bad. Let me put this in a way, because we say, well, this is infectious. That's a big word. Let me put it in small words everybody can understand. A lot of people are going to get sick. I don't know if you saw the recent publication, but they're suspecting that in Allegheny County, which is where Spirit Chapel is, we could see as many as 50 or 60% of the population here get sick, which means if you look around you, there's a person on your left, a person on your right, one of you is going to, possibly two of you are going to get this virus. And so that's a lot. That's an awful lot of things. So we have to understand what that means. Now, with any virus, you have something that's called a bell curve. You may have heard these terms thrown around a little bit. That's because it kind of looks like an upside down bell. But this is the way viruses generally work. They come in and they ramp up really, really hard, really, really fast, because there's a lot of people that they can infect. But over time, as people get infected and get over it, and 98% of the people right now are getting over it, so far as we know, maybe even higher in someplace like the United States as opposed to China. But so most people are getting over it. When you get over it, your body has built up antibodies, and it makes it pretty immune to it. And because of that, there's no place else for the virus to go, and eventually it dies, and you see that fall off the edge there. So, okay, it kind of has flu-like symptoms. It's going to come. You're going to get it. You're going to get over it. Chances are really good. Especially young people are going to get over it. They say that age 40 is about the splitting point. Most people under 40 recover, and it's not that most people over don't. It's just there's going to be a harder fight for those over 40, and of course, that people who are compromised, you have COPD or some kind of immune disease, that's going to be worse. But there's, those are kind of general guidelines. They're not exact, but I've heard a lot of stuff. I've read stuff online. There's been some celebrities that have been on Twitter saying, "What's the big deal? Let's keep going to the clubs. Let's keep dancing." So we're trying to say, "Hey, this is really, really important." I can hear the millennials; they're all like, "There you go, okay, boomer. Who cares? Doesn't matter." So, what's that mean? Why should they matter? Why should it matter to the millennials and the young people who are going to get over this? Well, the problem isn't just the bell curve. We have to understand that. The problem is not just the bell curve. The problem goes beyond the bell curve. It goes to something very, very important, and that is the numbers around the bell curve. See, this doesn't show you anything because it's in isolation. Let me show you some numbers, or let me show you where the numbers match. That's this line right here. And you may have seen this drawing, so it's shown up on a couple of different sites. But this line here is the healthcare capacity of the world. I'm sorry, the United States. That's the United States. That's their entire hospital. Now, this is how many respiratory units we have or anything. This is hospitals. We're talking hospital beds now, okay? This is the entire capacity of the entire United States. Now, you can see we've got a big chunk of this virus hitting over top of that. That means there's going to be people in waiting rooms, or maybe not even waiting rooms, maybe waiting areas, maybe buildings where they're quarantined, hoping to somehow find a place open where they can get some help that they need, because the coronavirus, if it hits its kind of stage 2 and gets to the pneumonia stage, it's a really, really nasty pneumonia that scars the lungs. It's very nasty. People are surviving if they can get on ventilators quickly, but where they can't, it's a really kind of a touch and go situation. This is where we're seeing the fatalities. So right now, we're saying if it gets over that line, we're going to have a lot of people who don't get that. But it's more than just that. You have to understand. Even if you say, well, okay, that's probably not going to be me. I don't care. I'm probably not going to get this. But you might get something. I'm telling you, that is the hospital beds in the country we're talking about, which means if you have an appendicitis and get rushed to the hospital, you might not have a bed. If you're going out with some friends and you eat an edible you shouldn't have had and it's making you trip out and you go to the hospital, there's going to be no beds for you, right? If your kid's in a soccer game, which shouldn't be going on right now, but if they're doing something outside or whatever and they get hurt, there's no beds for them. Do you understand what we're saying? If we overload the hospital system, we all suffer. That's why this is a really, really nasty kind of virus and why we have to deal with this. Now, it'd be nice if there's some kind of way that we could, deal with the virus. And there are a lot of things you may have seen, some vaccinations getting rushed to market in the trials right now, and that's great, but that's probably not going to help us this year. Next year, we may have a vaccine for this to keep anybody from getting it, but this year, it won't help us. This is the real world, folks. The Avengers aren't flying in to help us. Tony Stark is not going to find a new element on the periodic table that solves this whole problem. This is the real world. There seems to be no way of stopping the virus, which means we have to do the next best thing, and this is where you'll hear about flatten the curve. So the idea is that if we take some drastic measures and we quarantine and we self-quarantine and we stay home and we cancel things like churches and we cancel things like movie theaters and NHL and NFL and all these places that are getting cancer right now, the idea is the people may still get sick. We may get the same number of people even, but we're going to squash that curve, which means we're spreading it out over time. And because we're spreading it out over time, it means that we never max out our healthcare system. See, we know that this works. You say, well, that's a cool idea. What if it doesn't work? We know it works because we've been watching other countries. We've been watching what they're doing. Specifically, we watched the country of Italy. Italy took an approach very similar to what we started with. Hey, you know what? You should wash your hands more. Don't touch your face as much. Try to stay away from each other a little bit in public, and just be careful and be smart out there. And if you're old and infirm, stay home. They took that same approach. Well, nobody listened to them because they're Italians and they like to get together and eat food and talk. And so they kept doing what they did, which is exactly what a lot of Americans want to keep doing. Let's just keep doing what we do. Well, what happened is their curves never come down. It's gone up to amazing levels. Their health care is on the right now, just on the borderline of collapsing. There are doctors right now in Italy who are making life and death decisions. where our doctors are used to making life or death solutions. I'm talking about life and death, which means they say, okay, you get a hospital bed, that's going to be life for you. You're not going to get a hospital bed. You're probably going to die. Nobody should be put in that position. And actually, they're having some emotional breakdowns over there with the doctors. And you don't take my word for it. Read past the headlines. There are some journalists that are based in Italy, Italian journalists, who have written op-ed pieces for things like the Boston Globe. And they're saying, don't do what we did. All right, don't do it. It's a big mistake. We were selfish. We didn't want to change our lifestyle. And a lot of people are dying right now. And there's no end in sight for them. They're losing over 350 people a day right now. And don't think this is only the old person problem, because in France right now, 50% of the people in the hospitals are not senior citizens. So stop saying, that's okay, I don't mind the old people die. That's, first of all, if you're saying that, you suck as a human being. But second of all, that's not the right approach, because it's a bad thing. It can happen to you too. You have to understand. We've got to get serious about that. I mean, I was on Facebook. Somebody was upset because their kid's not going to get a chance to go to Disney World. My kid has a right to go to Disney World. Sure, in a perfect world, your kid does have a right to go and spend all your money at Disney World. It'd be great for them. My kids went to Disney World. I'm glad they got there. But my question is, how many people is it okay that have to die for your kid's right to go to Disney World? Because if we get into this situation and we don't have enough beds, people are going to die. All kinds of people. Maybe people you know. Is it okay if they die so your kid goes to Disney World? Let's stop being so selfish here. We have to take a look at it. Our model right now is South Korea. This is South Korea's curve, and you can see that all of a sudden it dropped off. What happened? Well, South Korea didn't let the people make the decision. The government made the decision. They came in, they shut some things down, they canceled their soccer games because, you know, they don't have real sports like football over there. And they canceled those, they shut down the clubs, and they quarantined people. They did a great job testing. Don't get me started on why we don't have tests. That's a longer story. But they did a great job testing. They invented the drive-by testing, so we're going to be following their model. And they're doing all this kind of testing so they could split up the healthy people from the unhealthy people. They could quarantine the healthy people and the unhealthy people. And so that allows them to say, okay, this is a problem, but we're going to solve it. We're going to fix it. And that's what they're doing. So we're going to try to follow that model. Yeah, Vika, it's live. So if you just go back and just touch the mouse pad on that Mac, it'll come back on. In the meanwhile, please, everybody enjoy the pretty slideshow we have here. Okay, so that's the idea. So let me put it in another way, maybe something that maybe people can understand. Do you remember, have you been out lately and have you tried to get some of this stuff? Hey, listen, I got the good stuff here. And the only reason I'm showing it to you now is because the doors are locked and nobody knew I was doing this. Look, this is the good stuff. This is soft and strong, right? This is like gold now. You can pay off debts with this. You know what this is? Of course, we all know that. Have you tried to get it recently? Did you go to a store and go, man, it's all sold out? These monsters who came ahead of me, all those greedy people, hoarded everything, so I can't hoard everything. Did you find a situation like that? Well, imagine that's what happens, except it isn't toilet paper. It's hospital beds, and you need a hospital bed. Now, not having toilet paper, yeah, that sucks. But you know what it's like to not have a hospital bed when you need it. We have to be smart here. So let's just come on and let's say that we're not just going to run into these things and declare ourselves faithful and go be foolish. I've seen that too. I've seen a lot of Christians say, hey, aren't we saved? Don't we have a great God? Yes, we are saved. Yes, we have a great God. Didn't you just preach this past week on Jehovah Rapha? Yes, I did. God heals. Doesn't God protect? Yeah. Go read Psalm 91, they say. Just go read Psalm 91. Read it over and over and over again until it sinks in. Listen, I love Psalm 91. Psalm 91 was read over me when I was 13 months old as a baby and dying. I know Psalm 91. It's terrific. Does the Bible not say that we are going to be safe in the secret place of the Most High? It does say that. But let me tell you something else the Bible says. And this you may find interesting. When Jesus was in the wilderness being tempted by Satan, Satan comes to him and he quotes Psalm 91 to him. He says, why don't you go do this stupid thing? Go jump off that and see if your father saved you, because Psalm 91 says that he'll command his angels to protect you. Why don't you listen to Psalm 91, Jesus, and go do something stupid? It literally happened, right? That's literally what happened in the wilderness. And Jesus says this, yeah, it's written that God will protect me, but it is also written that we're not supposed to foolishly test our God. If that's the answer that Jesus Christ, Son of God, gave, that's the answer we need to give too. Yes, God protects us. Yes, he will heal us. But let's not be foolish. That's not being faithful. That's being foolish. God doesn't call us to be foolish. He calls us to be faithful. We have to understand that. So we're canceling our services. Somebody asked me why. I'll tell you why we're canceling our services in a nutshell. Because the very, very first commandment, or second commandment, that we're given by Jesus Christ himself is to love our neighbors. Yeah, remember that? This happens in Matthew as well. And this Pharisee comes up and says, "Teacher, what's the greatest commandment in the law?" And Jesus says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind." This is the first and great commandment. But he goes on and says, "And the second one is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." On these two commandments hang all the laws of the prophets. How can we possibly say that we love our neighbors if we're willing to continue to hold open ceremonies and have people come and maybe spread this disease and maybe push everything over the hospital limit so our neighbors die? How in the world can we possibly say that? We have to be smart. We're all in this together, and we're supposed to love the people around us, and that's our first and foremost priority, is to love the people around us. So we're going to love the people around us. In fact, I got to tell you, I can't think of anything more Christian than this, to sacrifice so that others may live. So we are going to work with everybody else to flatten the curve. And in order to do that, we're going to have to cancel some things. Right now, obviously all of our events are canceled. We got a big one coming up here not far from now, Passover, and we've always held it. It's a really important thing for us. But we're going to continue to stay at home until this thing is passed, and we don't have to worry about killing somebody else by doing things. So I don't know yet what's going to happen to Passover. We've got a few weeks on that yet. But right now, every event here is canceled. We will be broadcasting live here on YouTube at 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings. Please join us. We're going to try to work together to set up some different kind of conferencing things, so maybe we can do Bible studies remotely. So let's look at that. I need you guys to stay with us on this and really just try to tell everybody else the message. We need to flatten the curve. We need to be in it for everybody else. We need to be smart. We need to be foolish. And we need to love our neighbors as ourselves. Thank you all. I love you all very much. And we will see you as soon as we can see you. In the meantime, we'll see you here, 10 a.m. on Sunday morning.